So let's get started. This is the Presidents and Leaders Roundtable for November, actually, not October. And since our teammate David Pyle usually runs these, he is on a well-deserved vacation this week, so we're going to do it for him. Let's start with a chalice lighting. And I thought I was flipping through our Lifting Our Voices readings book, and this one seemed particularly appropriate for our times, even though it was written by Thomas Merton, so it's a few decades old at least. He writes, "We are living in the greatest revolution in history, a huge spontaneous upheaval of the entire human race. Not a revolution planned and carried out by any particular party, race, or nation, but a deep elemental boiling over of all the inner contradictions that have ever been. A revelation of the chaotic forces inside everybody. This is not something we have chosen, nor is it something we are free to avoid." So with that in the background of what we're talking about today, I invite you to be a part of this conversation, this time together. Let me just go over what we like to talk about as being the purpose of this call, and then we'll have a chance for folks to just identify themselves a little bit and share where they're from.
Megan?
So, yeah, go ahead, Meg.
I just want to offer that if you can't see all of the screen, up at the top, there'll be an options down arrow, and you can go there and say fit the screen size, because I couldn't see it all at first.
Thank you. It's always kind of exciting. There's always new things to learn about Zoom. And I'm going to take us off this screen share in a minute so we can see each other more easily. So we're really excited to start up these calls. We're hoping that we can be in conversation more regularly with each other, and using this kind of webinar or Zoom technology enables us to do that more easily and more frequently. So the purposes of these calls are just to offer a regularly scheduled opportunity for us to connect with you. We think it's a great opportunity to share a few good ideas every month with all of our congregational leadership. I'm going to take a minute to mute everyone because I think I'm hearing an echo. Let me see if I can do that. No, I just muted myself. All right, well, that's, if everybody could mute. I can't figure it out right now, but if you could mute, that probably would help with the echo, if you're hearing it too. We're hoping to build community amongst you. That's important to us too. So if you hear someone say something that sounds like you'd love to follow up and find out more, you certainly don't need to go through us in order to talk to each other. And so one of the things we're hoping to foster is a chance for you guys to talk to each other, because you really are the people who are on the ground knowing things. We on the staff learn from you all the time, and your best information oftentimes will come from other people who are trying to do the same things that you are. And we're also, the staff, the Central East Regional staff is excited to hear from you about what you're working on, what you're excited about, what questions you have. That helps us tailor our offerings to you. So that's why we're here today. Just a quick look at I think our agenda is next. This is what we're going to talk about today. We generally have a spotlight segment where we introduce one of our team members to you, so you can connect a name with a face. And then conveniently, our spotlight person is also, Andrea Lerner is also going to be talking to us about transitions and our new transitions program. So as sort of our featured piece of information today. So that is, we're lucky to have her today. So first, before I launch into stuff, I wonder if we could maybe get a show of hands. Let's see how many we have here. So we've got 19 people on the call right now, which is great. Can you, if you're on the video and you're from Maryland, can you raise your hand? I live in Maryland. And if you're on the phone, you can speak up.
I'm actually on both video and on the phone. I'm here.
Great. Well, do whatever works, whatever we can see.
You might mute your computer. You might be the source of the echo if you're on both.
Okay.
Thank you. How about Virginia? Who's here from Virginia? Anybody? Great to see Warren. And who's here from Pennsylvania? Yay, Pennsylvania's in the house. And
Hi,
go ahead.
it's Evelyn Pendleton as well. I'm just on the phone.
Great, thank you. It's good to see you. How about New Jersey? One person from New Jersey at least. Anybody on the phone? And how about West Virginia?
Yes, I'm here.
One on the phone.
Great. Representing from West Virginia, that's awesome. And how about Ohio? Great to see you. And how about New York? Not seeing any hands.
There's one on the phone.
Great.
I'm on the phone.
Yay. You have to represent New York. All right, we're up to 21 people, and that's awesome. Thank you for being here. And so you get a scope of how big our region is.
You skipped Delaware.
Oh, Delaware! Thank you for reminding me of Delaware. How horrifying. I'm sorry.
We are the first state.
You are the first state. It should come first. All right, sorry about that. So you can see the size of our region and how vast an area we cover. It comes with a whole bunch of different cultures and ways of doing Unitarian Universalism, which we think is great. We're hoping to learn from each other. I know we on staff have learned a lot from working with people from all four corners of the region. So, so it's wonderful to all be together today. So, where are we? So I wanted to take an opportunity.
When do you want to push record?
I am recording.
Oh, okay. Oh, there it is. I was just seeing it not lit up at the bottom. Got it.
Thank you. I've asked Andrea to help me remember. I wish I could find the button to mute everyone because I think that would.
Some participants, if you want to make me the host, I can do that for you.
Oh, that would be great. But then I think I can't record it, right?
I don't know.
Manage. Oh, it's manage participants. Hold up. I found it. Mute all. Okay, I'm going to mute everyone to see if that helps with this echo. See, I think it did, which means that you can unmute by just going down to the left-hand corner. There's usually a mute button and you can click it or unclick it. I will.
As well, I think they can do *6 on their phones.
Possibly so. I have had people on phones be able to unmute, but I will unmute everyone if there's an opportunity for talking in a little bit. So hold on a minute while I get reoriented here. So one of the things I really wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you is just a couple of thoughts on the current events of our day and the times that we find ourselves in. We've heard on congregational life staff, we've heard everything that runs the gamut. We've heard we're a Trump voter and we're happy about what happened. We've heard we are a Hillary voter, we are devastated by what's happened. We've really heard everything in between. I think us on congregational life staff are like many Unitarian Universalists, keeping an eye out for what seems like a potential for activities and actions that may fall in contrast to our Unitarian Universalist values. And so I wanted to take a moment to say that regardless of your political stance and your feelings about the recent election, you already know as UU leaders that we stand for love and a commitment to diversity. We might see those values become necessary in the days ahead. I think it's important to remember that you are already equipped to stand on the side of love just by being who you are, Unitarian Universalists. There's not a lot of extra stuff you need to do right now to feel prepared for changes in the outside environment. You just need to refocus on who we are as a religion. It's really hard to know what to do right now. I think it's okay to feel like you need to be watchful and to wait. I think it's interesting that it's Advent, the season of waiting right now. As Advent's a time where you wait for several weeks for hope and for the sun to return to the world. And so it's an interesting reflective time of watching and keeping an eye out for what's happening in the world. I wanted to let you know that some congregations are choosing to do things like creating bystander intervention training, for example, in case there's bullying on the streets or in our communities. We've already seen that in the DC area on several occasions. I know I saw on the news that the ACLU has documented over 800 cases of hate crimes or hate attacks since the election. So that might be something you want to think about. Another thing that we're considering on the congregational level is ways in which we might encourage civil discourse in our communities. That certainly seems to be lacking. And so that might be another thing for you to think about. How are people in your community talking to each other on any topic, and especially on our more difficult ones? I did hear from one of our ministers today that she believes that our religion is actually about relationship, that our religion is relationship. And so if that's true, you might want to ask what relationships you might be strengthening right now. It's always a good time to create relationship across difference, but never more so than now, so that you can be in coalition with people who might find what's to come more difficult than our typical demographic. So I wonder if thinking about relationship might be useful to you. If you want, I just want to remind you also, we talked a little bit about primary contacts, our primary contact system, and how you might find your primary contact from the congregational life staff. I'm the primary contact for the DC area. Andrea is the primary contact in a lot of New York and New Jersey. She'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to put our link for how to find your primary contact into the chat box in case that you are interested in getting in touch with them just to talk about what's happening for you or ideas that you might have. We're really hoping that you'll reach out to us early and often when needed. And this might be one of those times where you can get some ideas or just talk about what's going on with you. So we just wanted to have an opportunity to share some of those ideas. I don't think this format is one that is very conducive to an open conversation, so I'll just leave it at that. But we're all happy to talk more and answer more questions. And of course, you should talk to each other for sure about how things are going for you and your work. I think the primary contact conversation is a great segue to Andrea. So I actually would love to turn it over to her so that we can talk about a little bit about what neck of the woods you're in, Andrea, what programs you cover, and who you mostly talk to.
So I live near Allentown, Pennsylvania. I've lived here for about 12, 13 years while I worked for the UUA. And my primary contact areas are what we call Metro North, served by the Metro North trains, up into Westchester and Dutchess counties and into Connecticut, and also northern New Jersey, with a couple isolated congregations in some of the other clusters that are in transition or are large. Those are some of my specialties. I have program areas, both in inter-congregational stewardship, which means chalice lighters, and also the annual program fund, and then also in ministerial transitions. We have one person designated in each of the 5 regions that work on the transitions team as we modify that and work toward the future. Do you want me to go into that part now, Megan, or was there more on the agenda before we get there? You're muted.
I should never mute myself because I always forget. That's my excuse for never muting myself. I have a couple of just housekeeping things to add in before we go to the main chunk of our discussion time.
Does anyone have any questions based on what I've already told you?
Ooh, let me unmute them.
Don't all talk at once, though.
It's not terribly complicated, so if you don't have a question, that's fine. We can move on.
Yep. Okay.
All right, good. And we'll have more time for questions later. So just a couple of other housekeeping things that you may want to know about. So one thing that we want to be sure that you're aware of is upcoming events in the UUA. And I would love to share the link to our events page with you. If you'll hold on for just a second while I call that up. Actually, let me just screen share this if I can without completely ruining everything. All right. This is, if you go to the UUA Central East region, you'll see this page. And as we talked about last week, this is where you, right here is where you click to find your primary contact. So again, your primary contact is kind of your first line of questioning. It's kind of like, who are you going to call? Call your primary contact, whether it's a problem or a question, or you just want to find out resources. You call your own primary contact. Each of our staff folks have about 25 to 30 congregations that they're the primary contact for. But for events, you scroll down a little bit over here to our events and webinars page to see what's going on. It is not, we are working on condensing it into a more clear fashion. Right now, what you're seeing is the product of the combination of 4 different districts that we've turned into one region and combined all their information. But I'm looking at December, and you can see here about all of our events that are coming up. So if you're looking for an event, and down here, if you're not a calendar person, you can come down here and just see them listed out. I tend to make more sense of that. If you have an event that you want to have listed, we do have a form that you can fill out to get that done. I can share that with you if you are interested in it, and that way it would be on the website for other people to see. And of course, we have our newsletter that has the upcoming events more centralized that I hope you're getting every month. But I just want to have an opportunity to share that website piece with you. On those upcoming events, we want to draw your attention, as we did last month, to our biggest regional event. Now, we're still having the same sorts of workshops and educational opportunities that we have had, but they tend to be more locally based at your cluster level. So that's another good reason to be in touch with your primary contact, so you can find out what's happening nearby. But we also wanted to make sure that you all had on your calendar April 1st, because April 1st is the UUA Presidential Candidates Forum that's going to be held physically at Cedar Lane UU. I see Dave's here. Thumb up. Awesome. Cedar Lane UU in Bethesda, Maryland. But we're also going to be live streaming it. It's available via live stream, I think, to everyone, but we're also going to have viewing parties around the country, often combined with leadership days. So at Cedar Lane, if you happen to be in the DC area, you can come and in the morning see the President's Forum, and then in the afternoon we'll have a bunch of interesting workshops or learning opportunities. That's true also in upstate New York, and I think in New York City and in Ohio, we're at least having viewing parties with maybe a discussion, or maybe party is a strong word depending on how fun you think UUA presidential conversations are. Maybe it will be a party. But we will be able to have an opportunity to see our 3 candidates in action, and they'll answer questions for us. So just be sure you have April 1 on your calendar, and stay tuned for opportunities to engage with it in one way or another. Are there any questions about that?
Nope.
All right, muting you again. All right. All right, I'm just checking my list here, and it looks like I would love to turn this over to Andrea to talk about our new transition system. Andrea, you can unmute. There you go.
Okay. Well, we don't have time for me to tell you everything, so we're going to hit the highlights. And many of you might not be interested at this time, but every congregation that has a paid minister is going to eventually have them move on and will need the services of the UUA staff. And so the most important thing I want you to know is that your UUA staff has your back during this time of transition. Both the office with Keith Cron and Margaret Montour at the UUA and your regional program manager. And now we have a team of trained regional transitions coaches that's going to accompany you through the 2.5 years, generally. From the time you find out till the time you settle a minister is generally 2.5 years. I wanted to point out a book called In the Interim. which is a great book for congregations and transitions to read because it has lots of people's viewpoints and stories and support about how to make that a very great learning opportunity from your congregation while you're in the middle of transition. The UUA is getting a brand new website for transition and a very new settlement system, and so we are ourselves in a transition. But I will describe to you a little bit more about what actually happens. So when you hear of your minister departing, perhaps they are retiring, perhaps they have decided that they have done enough work with you and need to have a new horizon to follow. They usually let congregations know in the spring, and your first call should probably be to your primary contact to let them know that this is happening, and then you will be all connected very soon to the transitions office and to me as the regional program manager. One of the early things that will happen is that we will schedule exit and transition interviews, an exit interview with the minister and a transition interview with the leadership of the congregation. And those are times for you to reflect on your joint ministry together during the time that that minister has served you. And we view them as learning opportunities to learn more about yourselves so that when you, especially throughout your interim period, come to reflect and to choose well about what kind of minister, what characteristics and qualities you want to seek in a newly settled person. The regional transitions coach will come and meet with your leadership fairly early in the process. We definitely want them to come and meet with you prior to your selection of any search committee. And they sort of just come in and give you an overview, let you know that things are going to be fine, and can work both with the leadership and also preach to the congregation if that is your wish. Later on, after you've chosen your search committee, which is probably a good 6 months to almost a year later, the regional transition coach will go on retreat with your search committee and get them all set up to begin their work, to do the surveys of the congregation, to prepare informational website so that ministerial candidates can know all about you. As your search committee works, they're going to be developing something called a congregational record that will be put up online, and the transition coach will help you craft that and sign off when it's ready for ministers to have a look. In the meanwhile, the ministers will also be making their own ministerial record so that when you're both ready, you can view each other's materials and the search committee can select a few pre-candidates to interview. The transition coach will provide ongoing support via phone and email and video conference throughout this entire process. And at the end, after you've chosen a settled minister and they've accepted and they're in place, we will provide a startup workshop of one sort or another for your minister and leadership, just to make sure that everyone gets on the same page so that later on, unwritten expectations don't get in our way. So I'm going to share my screen for a minute, and we're going to just look at a couple website pages. It's like I'm making that thing go away. No, I want this one. So, nope. It unshared, didn't it? Did it?
It did unshare.
All right. That's weird. Okay, now can you see it says ministerial transitions?
I can't now.
No. All right, let's go back to the Zoom screen. It's funny. Let me make that large. I'm totally lost. Oh, there it is. All right, one more time. Okay, now, Ministerial Transitions is the main webpage for the Transitions Office. And as you'll see on the left side, there are lots of different headings. There's little videos you can watch. There's definitely a lot of printed material. Much of this is also being rewritten as our process is changing. there is a lovely page of search calendar. This is really a great way to keep yourself on track. It talks about at the beginning when you find out your minister is departing, what kinds of things would happen that January to April. Meeting with it says MSR, just translate that into Regional Transitions Coach. And talks about the process, setting a budget, forming a search committee, and what the search committee needs to do. And then there's this lovely site I visit here all the time, Opportunities for Ministry. This page has virtually every single position that's open at a congregation, and it's sorted into assistant ministers, community ministers, contract ministry. These are generally part-time ministries. Developmental, which is a special category when you have specific things that you'd like to work on for a year or 2 or 3 or 4. We can fit you with a minister with skills to help you with those very specific things. Now, we do not allow those ministers to be called. They just come and work with you for that specified length of time. Interim ministers are the ministers that serve you directly after your minister departs, and they are specially trained to help you address the process of search and also to have a good look at your congregation. Oh, look, there's a typo. Settled ministry, this is the ones that are in search. You'll see on the right side, it said August 2017. These are all the ones that are in search now and expect to find a candidate by next fall. Well, usually they'll, of course, find them in the spring of 2017, and they'll do their candidating weeks, and they'll be called to the congregations then and assume their posts in August. And then we know already, because usually interims stay for 2 years, that there are a number of congregations you'll see listed for August 2018. And that is it. So what kinds of questions might you have about the process? Are any of you currently in transition?
Yes. Channing Memorial Church in Ellicott City is in the 4th month of our interim ministry.
All right.
Yeah.
So you'll be seating someone in 2018.
Yeah, I think I just saw us listed on your chart.
And I know we have one person here who's serving as a developmental minister. And, as I said, this is not information that you probably care about very much if you're not in transition, but I promise you will someday. And so you'll know who to call, your primary contact, Keith Cron at the UUA, and then me. And we'll get you set up.
I think when I first looked at that stuff, even in this, I'm going to go back to muting. It's amazing how many noises you can have with this many people. It can be really overwhelming to even think about or look at, and it can especially feel overwhelming if your minister just told you they're going to leave. So if there's one thing, I think Andrea said it already, but there's one thing we can tell you in this moment of calm where your minister is not necessarily leaving, it's that we are here to walk you through the process. It's all going to be fine. The reason why that's standard is that it will all be fine. And that we can, and Andrea and your primary contact can work together to make sure that it's not a devastating loss, but it's a really new opportunity for your congregation to think about their next chapter.
As a primary contact, when I first hear, I try to really get in there quickly and at least talk to the board to give them that reassurance, because it can be a time of high anxiety, and we need you to know that it's manageable and we don't need anyone to act out of that anxiety.
Amen. Any other questions on transition?
File, and I just want to say that Andrew, your team, and particularly Reverend Evan Carville Zimmer, were really helpful to us in finding a quarter-time contract minister.
Right.
and walking us through some of the complexities that we had not expected to have to think about.
Mhm.
But it all worked out very well. So we have Beth Marshall now as our quarter time.
I love to hear those success stories.
Oh, we're really pleased.
Andrea, can you talk a little bit about the less than full-time? I don't want to call it less than, but
Well, yeah.
placements and how that might.
Generally, the UUA process serves openings that are 3/4 time and above.
Sorry, my fault. Hold on.
That's when you will get assigned a regional transitions coach. And under 3/4 time, you will work with your primary contact and me. We will do our utmost to get the word out and develop wonderful candidates. We also encourage you definitely to still place your opening on that Opportunities for Ministry page, because you never know who's looking, and they're going to look there. If they're a UU minister, they know about that page. Very often, part-time ministry is harder to fill, but not impossible. Usually people who are going to have a half-time ministry have to do something else with the other half of their time because they need full employment. So if you're in an area where there's chaplaincies available, community ministry opportunities, or if they've moved there with a partner, or you could share one minister with 2 congregations, and that has worked very, very well in many locations.
That's awesome, Andrea. Thanks. Yeah, and also, like the rest of the country, our ministry pool can be aging, and ministers never just retire. They always do what I call fake retire. So, so they say they're retiring, they go somewhere else, and they'll often take like a part-time job or a temporary job, and so that you can don't fear if you are looking for part-time ministry. There are folks who particularly love that kind of work. I know I did when I was a congregational minister.
And sometimes our newer ministers are well suited to take a half-time ministry for a year or 2 while they're getting started. It's particularly if they've just graduated, but they need to stay in geographical place for a little while longer. We do occasionally, the UUA approves people who are graduated from seminary but not yet passed the MFC to serve congregations part-time. They sort of stand in line behind ordained candidates, but some congregations have really, besides being well served, they've also appreciated the opportunity to help a minister in formation.
Very true.
I just want to say hi to everybody I know. Hi. Hi, Katie. And Samuel.
Maybe you have your own fan club.
I know. It's really great to see you all. And greetings to the people I don't know and all of you on the phone.
Now they know you a little bit more. Are there any other ministerial transition related questions that we could cover for you?
Steve, Charleston. This is Steve from Charleston, West Virginia. We currently have a full-time contract minister. Our bylaws do not address contract ministers because we've never had one before. But nevertheless, we are probably going to reissue another contract for another year. But do you have any suggestions in terms of how we develop policies or procedures for going through this? Certainly the board is going to make the final decision about renewing the contract, but how do we get the congregation involved, to what level, and so forth? Do you have any words of wisdom that you can share?
I agree that most bylaws only cover settled ministry, and the board essentially hires ministers who are not called. And I would welcome you to email me or call me. We'll have an offline conversation about this. So my email is alerner@uua.org. That's alerner@uua.org. And if you've got a pencil, my phone is 484-201-4384.
Okay.
Often there's, you might want to also consider if you want to have any policies about calling a minister that serves you already as a contract. That is possible, that you develop such a strong relationship and you want to keep them and want to call them.
Yes.
Unless they're interim or developmental, that is a process we can go with our support.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I look forward to talking with you.
All right, hearing no other transitions, questions, we like to end by opening the floor. I'm going to mute everyone, I guess. So there you go. It's better to mute while I'm talking than when Andrea is, because then she can't be heard. I'd love to open the floor for any other general questions. Of course, recognizing the field that we have here, we might need to defer to a follow-up conversation. But are there any other questions about how things are going for you, how we can be useful to you? We'd love to just hear what they are and see if we can direct you to the right place. Anything?
What's going really well for you? You might not need assistance, but you might share something that will really spark something in another person. Hey.
Hi, Faye Bradwick. I'm here in Indiana, PA, which is 60 miles northeast of Pittsburgh, in the middle of nowhere, where there's
call that centrally isolated.
Well, it's isolated. I've been here 25 years. And most of us who are here because of the state university that's here, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, either us or a spouse or someone. But just sort of a point that I wanted to make that sort of covers the concept of transition and the concept of current events after the last election. It is where I am here is so much Trump territory that the Unitarian Church here, which is the town is about 15,000 people. The university is about 15,000 people. The county is less than 90,000 people. And the way that the election worked was 70% or more voted for Trump and his ilk, and that means that 30% or less voted in what most of us kind of perceive as a more progressive fashion. One of the things that did for us here was we had activity in the first week or so after the election. The night after, we held sort of an emergency potluck because our congregation was so shocked and in so much pain, which was actually a very successful event and brought in some people from town in addition to many of our own church members. Some of those people then showed up on Sunday. The last few Sundays, we've had one or two new people show up. And the point that I want to make about that and the transitions is one of the things that I've been president for a year now and vice president the year before that. But I've been hearing for some years now about how UUA up in Boston has been moving more and more towards providing assistance for the larger congregations. And I understand that becomes, just a numbers game. But I do want to suggest that there is a unique opportunity or challenge as a result of what happened in the November election to provide some additional assistance or just checking in on smaller rural congregations, UU congregations, because there's a lot of parts of this country where there are none whatsoever. And those of us who are in isolated places like I am here in Indiana, PA, we are important to the people who are here looking for a liberal spiritual voice and organization. And I just want to make sure that the people up in Boston think about that. So if you all could sort of relay that message, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, I couldn't support your message more, and in fact, don't even need to relay it because our UUA is on board already with the importance of both small congregations in general, and also with the unique needs of small congregations that are in rural or particularly conservative areas where we might be the only liberal religious voice or the only voice promoting our values in quite a large geographic area. And I know my folks in West Virginia know what I'm talking about for sure. But we've got congregations like that all over the country. And one of the things that's, I hate to use the word exciting, but if you are a congregational life geek like myself, one of the things that is exciting about recent events is that it makes our reason for being and our messaging extremely clear and extremely important. And so, yeah, we certainly want to support our congregations that are both smaller, which has its own. I'm the small church program manager for our region, so I have all sorts of smaller church things that I offer in general. But both our smaller congregations, which kind of are the seedbed of a lot of our innovation, and our folks that are in more rural communities are all they're all congregations that we want to be sure to support. There isn't any. It's funny, over the course of time, there's always like every size congregation will eventually tell congregational life staff that they're sure that all the resources are going to a different size congregation. It is our intent. It may not be our effect, but it is certainly our intent to serve the needs of every congregation, regardless of size. We don't really play favorites.
Right, more than half of our congregations are small, and so we always keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I did post in the chat a reading list for post-election meaning and learning. Just one of the many resources. There are worship resources. You might want to check out a Facebook page called Beyond Partisanship, which talks about having civil discourse across difference. It's run by 2 UU ministers from our region.
Yes, that's true.
I'll go find the link to that.
Thank you, Andrea. But really, your primary contact, at least I can only speak for our region really, but your primary contact in our region is going to be responsive to your needs. So please do reach out and talk about your particular, and ask for resources too. You know, our slogan is better together. We certainly believe that. And so if you want to know about other congregations that are facing the same situations that you are, there are almost always going to be some, and we can help you get together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Folks on the phone, if you want to email Megan or myself, we can send you all these links that we put in the chat.
That is true.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the good of the order?
Yeah, hi. It's Evelyn Pendleton I'm from Lancaster. I'm the president of the UU of Lancaster. And so one of the things that we've seen at our church is the feeling of helplessness after the election, and people want to do things. So the one thing that I really appreciated was the bystander intervention training. I'll take that back. I think that's very helpful. The other thing that's come out, and I'm not sure if this is really going to work out or not because I'm hearing different things, but the Women's March in Washington, D.C. And my question on that is, let's say it does happen and they get a permit and make it happen. Is there any kind of organization behind that? Like, it would be great to have, you know, if a bunch of churches are going down there, that we all come together and we have one big banner standing on the side of love and marching together.
Yeah,
that was the
perfect
question
timing.
I had.
Great, perfect timing, because I was just on a call today where folks are trying to organize that.
Okay.
As you said, you described it very well. It's a little bit complicated. There have been questions about the leadership. The logistics haven't quite happened, but there's no doubt that apparently hundreds of thousands of women want to come, or people in general want to come to DC during the weekend, the Saturday after the inauguration, to march on behalf of women's rights. And the name of it keeps changing as well. So we indeed are trying hard to keep up. And one of the things we're talking about now is coordinating housing for folks. So in a few days, we will have a central clearinghouse location that if you were going to come and you're looking for housing, we can direct you to UU congregations that are putting together home hospitality opportunities. It will be a very crowded to be in this city during that weekend. You should expect that all hotels will be booked due to the inauguration. That's always true. You should also expect that it's going to be super cold. For some reason, it's always really cold that weekend. So just things to think about. But we'll have that website up and running by the end of the week. As far as coordinating action on the ground, we do expect that there will be a very large UU presence. There's 27 congregations right here in DC, never mind all the folks who might be coming. So we will definitely keep you posted on ways in which that will be coordinated. We imagine that it will be the Standing on the Side of Love campaign that will direct that, but we're not exactly sure yet. So if you haven't heard, check that website just to see what the update is. And you can also email me. We're all UUA stuff are first letter, last name. So I'm mfoley@uua.org. And I'm the person on the ground here in DC. So if you want an update, I can certainly provide it.
Hey, Megan, this is
so
one. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I just follow up on one of those things? Do you know if it's definitely happening? Because we were just going to take a bus and go in and come back, but we have to put the deposit on the bus tomorrow.
Yeah.
So do you know it's definitely happening?
They don't have a permit yet for any place. They will not get a permit for the mall. So, but the folks who are organizing it do plan to have something. So they say that you should come.
Yeah, I would guarantee there's going to be activity. Guarantee there's activity on that day. Our church in Arlington, Virginia, is committed to 200 households that have committed to, be places where people could stay. That's for now. We're still getting other households to sign up. So I think there'll be a lot of room for UUs in Washington. We're ready.
I've listed the national Facebook page, and there are sub-pages for every state. And I would go and look there so that you can keep up to date. They'll be posting when they have their permit and for where.
Okay.
So that's not really an answer about your bus conundrum, but
no, it's okay. But I mean, you said confidently that they're not. So it's not gonna be a march on the mall, is what you're saying, because they can't get there's no way they're gonna get the permit for that.
Right.
I wouldn't say there's no way they'll get a permit, and if they don't, there's plenty of other places that they can march. It'd be very unlikely there's not a major event the day after the inauguration. It'd be very unlikely that there's not an event.
Right. I'm just looking here on their Facebook page. They've listed the venue as the Lincoln Memorial.
Ideally.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what they're hoping for, but
yeah.
So I know they're using the words rally now rather than march. I don't know what the nuances of that language is, but.
Okay, but the Standing on the Side of Love webpage is what I should be looking for updates.
I was looking directly for
the
Women's March on Washington Facebook page.
Oh no, we've been watching that.
Okay, great.
Watching that. I'm more interested in, I'd like to see what I'm interested in how we as a organization across the country are organizing. There are other churches around here. Should I just individually try calling them to see what they're doing, or is there going to be somebody trying to organize all of that? That's what I was asking.
I think as far as organizing folks in your neighborhood, you can go ahead and call, or you can check with your congregational life staff, your primary contact, to see what information they have. But I can't imagine that anyone from any central location is going to be able to reach out to all the congregations to coordinate that. I think what's more likely is that hopefully if it happens and once people are here, we'd be able to get bodies in the same place and coordinate activities on the ground. But I'll have to figure out where that information will be housed. I'm guessing that it'll be at the SSL website, but I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, Megan, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Who's this?
Yeah, Mike Miller. I'm in two places here. I don't have a microphone, so I'm also the 301 number. I'm at Davies Memorial Church on the southeast of DC, just a stone's throw outside of the Beltway. I saw you send an email out earlier in the week about a listing, a clearinghouse, whatever, for lay members who are willing to help out and fill in spots where someone might need a preacher to help fill out their calendar. I think that's. I just wanted to thank you for that effort. I think that's a great way that we can each help each other out. And I sure hope there's a big banner out there. Me and my wife tend to be hope to be there on wherever this rally is at for the march.
Great, thanks, Mike. Yeah, that's called Guest in Your Pulpit, that program that Mike is talking about. And if you, we've expanded it recently from the Ohio side into the rest of the region. So if you're looking for guest speakers, you can check that out on the website and see who might be a good fit. And I am sure there'll be a banner. All right, folks, I'm gonna let us go a little early tonight, but please do feel free to get in touch with us. This is what we live for. So feel free to get in touch with your questions, big and small. I'm just gonna close this out. Oh, first a reminder, we won't have this call on the last Wednesday of December. The UA is closed and we expect all of you will be off partying and having relaxing times, so you're welcome. We will see you again in the end of January, and hold on a second. In January, our colleague Renee Rahutsky will be talking about our Online Leadership Institute, which is a fabulous resource. So I hope that you'll be able to come to that or send someone else. So for a close, I'd love to end with another reading, this one from Rebecca Parker, who is the former president of our seminary, Star King, and is currently a minister in residence at All Souls in DC. And I love this reading. She says, "Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. You must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts?" So knowing that there are such extraordinary gifts in all of our congregations and in our lay leaders, I want to express my gratitude for you for being today and for the incredible work that you do on behalf of Unitarian Universalism in our region. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your efforts. Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night.
You too. Thank you.